Okay, we are now in the meeting. We'll start the meeting at 6:34 p.m. We have a quorum present and we will proceed with the agenda. First thing, before we get into that, I would like to welcome our new members, Kyler Fiegels, who's joining us for the first time tonight. Welcome, Kyler. And I would like to welcome back Teresa Lofgren. Teresa, it's nice to have you back. Looking forward to having both of you jump into the discussion with both feet. First order of the business would be to review and approve minutes of the previous meeting, September 27th. They were mailed to all of the participants of that meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? And I'll look for a motion to approve. Do we have a second? All those in favor? Okay. Next item would be public comment. We have no public present, so we'll move forward to select board input. Andy, do you have anything from the select board that you'd like to offer?
I do, and I'm gonna read to you from the Cumberland County Board of Commissioners meeting minutes. It affects the CIP spreadsheet, I believe, and the fire chief will have more information on that when you interview him. Authorization was voted for the county manager to award the bid submitted by Radio Communications Management of Portland, Maine for the Cumberland County Regional Communications Center radio infrastructure end-of-life upgrade. $1,766,930 of ARPA funding for the purchase of P25 digital capable radio system and $1 million of federal earmark funding for the purchase of mobiles and portables for the towns. County Manager Gailey explained that the agenda item was for the conversion of an analog radio system used by the communication center to an analog and digital capable system. The award is complemented by a federal earmark secured by Travis Kennedy that will go towards the mobiles and portables. It also includes repeaters and that type of thing for the different areas. I'm ad-libbing a little bit, so I don't have to read you 2 pages of stuff, but it should push out any monies that we have set aside for radio work in the town.
So all of that communications gear that we have itemized on the list should get updated soon and then restart a new service life for all of those items.
Right. They're, I think, 17 years into a 10-year service life with their dispatch center. So no,
Chief,
it's good news for us.
sounds like very good news. I assume Chief Peters will give us.
He'll give you some more specifics because he's been attending the meetings with emergency management and the dispatch center.
Okay, good. Well, that is good news. Any updates on the future facilities committee?
We're kind of at a stalemate right at the moment. The consultant that was hired to do a needs assessment really hasn't done a needs assessment. They've asked us what we want. Basically.
I ask who the consultant is.
Port City Architecture.
Yes, I'm familiar with them. I'm an architect, by the way.
Aha. Well, I wish we'd known that.
He wouldn't let me in.
So I know Matt for Public Works has come up with some interesting sketch designs that would greatly reduce the price And I'm not sure where Jesse is on it at this point, but we're working on it.
Okay, any questions for Andy?
What kind of a time schedule are they working on? You think years, 2 years, 1 year, 3 years?
Depends on what the cost is. It's gonna, I would guess we're at least 2 years out from breaking ground.
I think that's a minimum.
Yeah.
I mean, Bo Chesney is working with our congressional delegation and looking at the possibility of getting a grant for a portion or all of the project. We can't even talk to them until next spring sometime, and there's a short window. So there's kind of a race to see if we can make this window at least to present our project. And I think he said they're looking at
January.
2025 monies.
Yeah.
And if you don't,
How much money?
that's when monies would be awarded from the pork budget in Congress.
Yeah, it's the Congressional Discretionary Fund.
That's that's the other name for it.
I see two buildings here and didn't catch which one you're talking about.
We're talking fire station and public works.
Oh, both of them you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Those buildings you see in there are placeholders. You'll see they're not funded for anything. But this committee did approve a year or two ago, adding them as something that was needed in the town based on the comprehensive plan. So they were put in as placeholders.
Okay.
The two buildings, Public Works and Public Safety, came up in town last year, and a separate committee has been charged to deal with that project.
And this is and you're seeing this happen in the next 3 or 4 years.
You said happen. I don't know when it will happen. I'm seeing that we are going through the needs assessment work now. I wouldn't venture a guess as to when it would happen, because it's going to be, we have town approval to do a needs assessment. The next step would be, once we determine what our need is and where we want to go forward, would be to get town approval to do a design, go through that process. Then going through design would be going to town meeting again to do a build authorization, build and finance authorization. So it's going to take 2 or 3 town meetings to get to that point. And that's going to be handled outside, because of the size and scope of those projects. It'll be handled outside this committee by, right now, the Future Facilities Committee. Andy, you had a question?
I just wanted to give Kyler a little background. You're fairly new to town. This has been tossed around for at least the last 20 years. We need a new fire station. We need a new fire station, but nothing has ever gone past that. This is now getting real.
Working on it. Okay.
Has a location been determined yet?
Right now, I would say the short answer is no, but the working location would be on land that the town has adjacent to town hall.
Okay, thank you.
The reason it's on our spreadsheet is that if these get approved, bonding is part of our spreadsheet, a separate page, and then maintenance, a certain cost of maintenance over a certain amount would come under our committee. So that's why it's on our spreadsheet, even though what we deal with is the road commission and the public safety fire chief bring requests in, and we discuss how to fund them. But this is on our spreadsheet because our committee will be dealing with it, not whether we build it or not, but once it goes through the funding and maintenance and that type of thing falls under our committee. That's why it's on our
Right,
spreadsheet.
and another reason to add to Rodney's comments was that this committee is the moving force in town that brought it to the surface. These projects, we've been talking about them in the comprehensive plan since 2006. So this committee has periodically looked at those projects, had discussions that didn't go very far with various parties in town, and recently this committee decided to move it to the top of the heap, if you will, and see if there was any traction for it. Traction has started. We'll see how far it goes. But I would expect that we will see a project come out of this at some point, but still very early in. Anything else, Andy?
I'm good.
All right, thank you. All right, we're now going to go into the fun part of the agenda, and that is to talk about the committee charge. I know everybody's been waiting for this part. Hopefully I can. All right, so-
Have the two of you gotten this part that was handed out with the
yeah.
badge that we're looking at now?
Yes.
Lisa,
Wait a minute. I
um, I have a question, Paul.
Yes.
If I can. On the committee charge, down at the bottom, it says 2/3 will constitute a quorum. Well, I just did the math earlier. And with 5 members, 2/3 is 3 1/3 members. So my question is, would 3 members constitute a quorum, or does it have to be 4? Because if you go by 2/3, 3 members wouldn't be enough.
The way that's written, it would have to be 4.
Right.
Now,
So,
I don't know what it says in town. Because it seems to me, I looked at that in town policy, and which I believe, well, back when we were 3,
it had to be 2 of us.
there had to be 2 of us, and I
Now
know
that we're at
that followed
5.
town policy.
It's difficult.
So we're gonna, I mean, we'll rewrite that, and we'll repropose that unless there's some town policy that we have to follow.
We can make it 3/5, though, we would think.
Well, we'll have to look and see what town policy is for committee, if there is one.
Just put a majority.
Well, if that's okay with town policy, I think that's what Jan Peter is
But yeah, let's table that question in terms of quorum.
I just wanted to bring it up, put it on the table, and not that we
Right,
need a
let-
solution today.
Right, let's table that so we can focus on what we've done and what we need to do. So I've got, I think I've got, yeah, on the television is the items that came out of our previous minutes. That show the bullet points that we developed in a brainstorming session. Oops. What go? This is not following my.
This is a great time for new members because we're hashing out actually what we do. So being new to the committee, if you want to know what we do right now, we're trying to decide. And
which explains why it's a little
What's
loose,
that?
which explains why it's a little loose.
well, we've had a couple of different charges and we're not quite sure how they fit into our committee work. We're kind of trying to come up with a recommendation we can send to the selectmen of this is what our committee does. To sort of fine tune, there's been questions about exactly what it is that our committee does. And so that's what we're working on tonight is kind of putting things together on what it is that we do.
Well, we have known what we're doing all along, but I think exactly the definition of what we're doing is there are different opinions about that. I think between the select board as well as ourselves from time, and we have been discussing it for a long time, but we have been doing the same thing for a great number of years.
Which is why I asked you earlier about how long it had been in process, because when I was looking at this, it did look loose. But that's.
Well, yeah, we have the charge that is in that, on that document is the one that's on record with the town. There have been fits and starts about the charge of this committee since I've been on it multiple times with the select board. And recently, within the past year or two, the committee decided that we didn't have a written charge that we agreed with the select board. And we took it upon ourselves to, let's create a new one that we think represents what we've done, because this committee has evolved, at least in the time that I've been here, quite a bit over how we do our process and what we do. And we're still evolving, as you would imagine. So we did a brainstorming session that developed those bullet points. And now we're going to do another brainstorming session to see if we can't start putting that together. And then at the end, I'm going to see if there's somebody that can take all this brainstorming and do a first draft. I don't expect we're going to resolve this tonight or come up with some great document tonight. Ain't going to happen. But we have some time in between interviews with our department heads and getting into the meat of the model that we have to develop our appropriation request. So we'll spend it here.
One of
So-
the other things is we're looking at a name change. And so when we finally have our charge, we can look at a name change. That's one of the things that helped drove this besides other things. My question was, we don't improve capital. So our name, for people to know what we do. The budget committee works on the budget, the recreation committee works on recreation. We're trying to define by doing the charge, what is it that our committee does, and can we reflect that in a new name?
So I think if you'll just feel free to jump into the discussion, go with the flow, and we're not going to come down and vote on this is the charge we're going to submit to the select board tonight. We're going to keep building this until we've kind of fleshed out what it is, because we've had some very different ideas than what that document says there. And to be more transparent, Kyler, nobody on this committee had seen that document until we found it in the archives a few months ago.
Yeah.
All right. So in my 12 or 13 years on the committee, I'd never seen that till then. And Peter and Rodney probably hadn't seen it in their time here. So
I've seen 3 different ones.
not the official one.
No one really knew what the official one was, and
Okay. So back to the discussion. So I've got on the screen, these are the same bullets. And right now I'm just trying to say, all right, they're just bullets. There's got to be some meaning behind it. What do we mean? So on a couple of these slides, I've taken each bullet and I've said, all right, what does that mean? I've taken some things and I'm asking you to correct them, add to them, flesh it out. When we talk about tool for capital planning, what do we mean? Forward look for 20 years. That's what we do now. Separate appropriation versus bonding. Adjustment for cost inflation over time. What else does it mean when we have when we say tool for capital planning?
Adjustments for interest.
Okay, interest income, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So Jan Peter, are you gonna take these or you want me to capture them in the slide presentation?
Do I what?
Are you gonna capture these additional bullets to put under, or do you want me to capture them in the slide presentation?
can you add them in the slide so we can see them?
Yes.
Okay.
So there was,
So I think it would be, so we said,
interest we're making on the,
oops,
what we have in the account. The other thing that might go in there, all is our 5-year smoothing, where we do the smoothing for the next 5 years out.
So these bullets are in addition to the 9 bullets that we have from the previous meeting?
yeah, these are gonna be sub bullets that further define what that bullet means.
So some of these are sub bullets if you want to.
Everything that we see under the heading, the tool for capital planning
Yeah,
is
okay.
the heading of this slide. That was one of the bullets that we had called out in our previous brainstorming. Now, we're trying to break it down so that when that we have enough information that will tell the drafter of the first draft, this is what we were meaning when we said tool for capital planning. Now,
If you can you keep track of that?
you're,
Send it to me later or?
yeah, you're watching it real time.
Right,
Oh,
quick enough.
Yeah.
One thing what our spreadsheet does, is designed to do, is to keep things from going up and down radically, the appropriation, like we need a new dump truck. We don't wait until the year before to try to fund for it. So we try to, we need a lot of money this year. We don't need any for a few years. We need a lot. We're trying to smooth that out. So we have a steady appropriation. And the 5-year smoothing is, we smooth it out for the next 5 years. From even with so that we don't get into those wild fluctuations. Then at the end of that, each year we smooth it out again for 5 years. So that's what the 5-year smoothing is.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else that we want to call out that are key items in the tool that we would be looking for from the committee?
Is this where we want to put in that any items added or subtractive have to be approved by this committee and the selectmen, or is that in another book?
That's not part of the tool. There's a flow process that we,
That's in the flow process.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
and we can come back to this if somebody thinks of something.
I guess. It could be yearly updates on costs of capital items. So each year we ask the people responsible for each item to come up with a current cost, because dump trucks sometimes will increase by 15% in 1 year. So we ask them, go out and get each year we ask them to come up with a current, because sometimes even in the past year, it's gone up 15%. So in like 3 or 4 years, we don't all of a sudden find out, okay, the price of a dump truck has doubled, and it's like, whoa, catch
Yeah,
up complete.
yeah.
So every year we have new updates.
Especially these last few years, it's just been horrific.
I guess that's good for now.
Well, we can always come back to it.
Okay.
On the asset list, when you think about the asset list, I just threw out there public works, construction equipment and vehicles, public safety, firefighting equipment and vehicles, Mallet Hall.
What about roads? We have that on our sheet, even though we don't normally discuss it, but we do have it on there.
They're on the asset list.
Yeah, the roads.
Yeah, they are.
We don't have all the roads. We have road items when
we bond them.
we bond them or the town comes back to us with a specific road project. We've not tried to capitalize all of the roads in town.
But we have road rebuild on it now. Remember
Right, but so we don't have roads. If you want to say road rebuild, that's something different because that's a generic project.
Yeah, road rebuild.
Right.
Let's see, I guess the other things like the bridges and things would be under public works. Well, I guess road rebuild could go under public works.
That's where it would be. Yeah, that's the department that would bring in a road rebuild project.
So I guess we don't need it. I'm sorry, it would come under.
Well, we could put it up here like this.
What about a new building? Right now, the only building we have that we're talking about is Mallet Hall, but the fire buildings and the public works building are assets.
Right. Well, then I think you're bringing up a point. This should not include just what's on the list now. We should be forward looking to think
Right.
what else might be on this list as the town changes over time.
Could we call it town buildings instead of just Mallet Hall, call it town buildings or?
I would think that makes sense. Because, I mean, there's no sense to go into details.
public facilities.
Details that we don't even know yet.
About public facilities. Sounds,
Well, I'm wondering, would they know, would that be like a park or would that be considered
it
public?
could be.
Would that come under, I don't know, to me, town buildings is, I don't know, public facilities.
I mean, town,
Open
public
for
facilities could be something different than buildings, because say as part of our growth plan, we build a playground with playground equipment on it. Those would be assets of the town that periodically would have to be refreshed.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Well, facilities would do.
Public facilities, yeah.
Or a sports field or a,
Very. Okay. We really are looking into the future, aren't we?
Well, I think it goes back to, we've been caught short in the past where somebody brings in a new item and says, oh, we need this in 2 years. Well, yeah, but there's no possible way we can plan for that in 2 years. You should have been here 10 years ago.
Yeah.
We need to get these things highlighted for us. We had else, like that one year we told the select board, we can't pay for this. You got to go issue a bond. I know you don't want to, but that's the only way you're going to get the money in the time frame you want. So if we can, and it may be that all we are doing is knocking on doors and saying, you need to tell us now what you need 10 years from now or more. So definition of capital expenditure, that was something that we included as a bullet. So what are the types of thoughts that need to be in the plan in our charge about a capital expenditure?
We had quite a bit of discussion on that. I remember what things would come under our purview and what wouldn't. I think one thing that needs to be on there is it's over $10,000.
There was a limit, there was a limit of 10,000, I believe it was.
Right, and then that,
Oh, it was.
part of the discussion was, suppose it's 10 items that are $1,000 each. Or is it $10,000 for one item? That came under like thermal cameras.
Right.
If they were $5,000 each and they needed two, does that come under us or does it come under their maintenance? So that was one thing.
your annual budget.
Annual budget, yes. And there was something else that there was disagreement on whether it came under our committee or not. I'm trying to remember what it was, like a year or two ago.
There was painting for Mallet Hall that had been under our committee for quite some time when we finally looked at it here and said, that's an operating expense,
It is an operating expense.
right?
Maintenance.
Yeah.
Under Mallet Hall, yeah.
Yeah. Andy, you had a comment?
I would put $10,000 cost of asset threshold. Because that's where we come in. So that would be. I'd say we, I'm not a member of the committee.
No, but you're right.
Yeah. Is there a town accounting definition of what a capital item is?
I don't believe so. Anything over $10,000 has to be bid,
Okay.
so.
But Paul, I think once you mentioned, which was something really important, let's say they needed to cut down trees in cemetery and it came to 15,000. Well, that's not a capital project, because that's not a capital project.
It's the
Right,
same
right.
as painting.
Right, there's no asset there,
Right, so this has to do with assets.
right? Now, I would think, in a private company, you would say, is it a depreciable asset? Now, municipalities don't typically depreciate their assets, although they do have to account for that now. So if you can't depreciate the cost, then it's probably not a capital item. Like when they go buy one tire for $10,000 for the grader.
Right.
That's not, you're not depreciating the tires, it's an operating cost.
Well, should we put that in there? It has to be something that can be depreciated in
Right.
value. So that, like you say, a $10,000 tire doesn't fall under our capital items.
So the asset must be able to be cataloged or accounted for.
Be depreciable, isn't, can we make that a word?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good, that idea that you had is really good, that it's gotta be something that's depreciable, so we don't get on all these, minor things.
Now there, you get into another gray area when you're gonna replace the roof on the Mallet Hall.
Well, let's think, we did.
Right.
And that was, I think, $18,000 or something that we paid for that somewhere around there. But that is depreciable because it has about hopefully a 50-year life.
Right, but try to think the words I'm thinking of, it has a material change in the life of the asset.
And then, of course, so does the paint. I mean.
Yeah.
So you can,
Well,
I think those are maintenance items. Particularly,
Would a roof fall under maintenance then, or increase the maintenance budget, or would it fall under?
It does at my house.
well, go
somebody has to pay for it.
go back to what we did with engine 2, I think, where we extended the life of the engine by 8 years by investing, we made a capital investment of $25,000 that extended the life of the asset for another 8 years so we could avoid bonding. So in that case, we did a lot of little things, but it was a one-time asset. I can't think of the right word now, but it materially changed the asset life because the asset was gonna fail. Or we could invest and we could buy a new truck, or we could extend the life of the asset by investing $25,000.
You rebuilt the truck.
Yeah, we did enough rebuilding that we could refurbish. Yeah.
Refurbished, okay, better, yeah.
That's the word we used.
So why don't I try and,
Okay, that sounds good, I guess. And it's good.
sources and thresholds of financing. So I threw out there just to get the discussion going, appropriation is a source of funding, issuance of bonds, which would include leasing, impact fees, we've not looked at in the past, grants would be sources of funds. Some of these,
They want to put in tax increment finance.
okay,
That,
Those tips. Yeah. Are we looking at any of those again, or?
we're well on our way to putting one in place
Really?
with the Estabrook property.
So we still have to go by the same guidelines as when we were looking at the TIF on the, energy?
Well, we combined that TIF with a village
district. Village district, right?
village district TIF. It increases the amount of available land that you can put into the TIF. We may not realize any income from a good portion of that TIF for 10 years, but it's in place. And we are writing it so that we can take all of that TIF money or any percentage thereof as we deem necessary.
Anyone need an explanation of the TIF? I mean, we've heard it before, that's why we know what it is.
Let's
Oh,
take that
yeah.
offline because we could spend the rest of the meeting doing that. Are any other sources and thresholds of financing that,
Well, when we
Interest income.
right,
Yeah.
from our interest and what, when town has approved money to be switched from undesignated to us, is that under appropriation?
That's still unappropriated.
Under appropriation, okay.
Or special.
Yeah, I don't think we should look at that as a source. That's a gift from the townspeople.
No.
Or it's a, no, it's not the right way to put it. That is
Yeah,
a,
it doesn't need to be on there because it's not.
it's not,
Using undesignated funds and basically giving it back to the taxpayer through
right.
funding.
But I don't think we should look at it as a source of income because it's typically,
It may not always
It-
be.
yeah, it'll, right.
That looks good, I think.
So that, expands our horizons on what sources of funds might be. Approval process, add, delete items on the asset schedule. So Rodney, this is what you mentioned earlier.
Right, the rule on the committee is that for anything to be added or taken off, it has to be approved by this committee and the select board. I think also we might want to include on there that so that the public knows that anyone can approach committee members or the select board. Do we have a process for other, I mean, the road commissioner and fire chief bring items to us and the select board, but if someone in town or a different committee wanted an item, do we have, I don't know if we ever made a specific process for them to do that.
The only process we would have is public comment at the opening of the meeting on the agenda is another committee could come in and say, this is what we're doing. We'd like to propose this new asset be added to the schedule and funded by the committee.
If a member of the
I
public.
think, I think it should be vetted by the committee first before it goes before the select
Yeah,
myself.
Okay, so it
But
should
should
come
it-
to
if
this
it comes
committee
from the-
first.
But if it comes from the public, shouldn't the route be that it first go to the select board and then they come to us?
Andy just,
I
I
know,
think it should be vetted by the committee for feasibility
Vetted.
before this,
I'm talking about the routing.
in your opinion, given to the select board before the select board.
I think it would be better to keep it off the select board's plate until this committee decides it's an item that merits being on the asset schedule and funded through here. And
we
then it,
want to add that in
Yep.
case new, if we're gone and new people are on the committee that
so new asset items,
vetted by our committee and then they go to the select board.
because I think even in the past, new items coming from a select board member came here before they went to the select board.
Before they went to the entire select.
Right.
You really need to explore the feasibility of it before.
Right. And I think, these are
make an
just,
Informed decision.
right. Yeah, I think we've got to do that due diligence just because, we've had, like the request to put a tire.
No, but I was talking about the routing. Even if it goes to the select board first, then you guys can come to us and say, hey, such person came up with this idea, could you guys vet it? Could you guys take a look at it?
I would probably tell such and such a person to come before the committee.
Yeah.
Yeah, otherwise it's wasting time.
Yeah.
Like, if you guys are just gonna route them back to us, then why don't they just come to us first?
You're
and then-
losing a month in the
Yeah,
process.
yeah.
Right there.
I think this helps to define what our committee's work is that new thing we just added there, coming here first and vetted before it goes to the select board.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have a question? Looked like you.
No,
Oh,
no, thank you though. Although I would suggest that you say new asset item proposals. That's just a thought.
Mm.
Certainly.
Good, that makes sense.
Very good.
And again, this is not the flow diagram or the actual process. These are just kind of the bullets that when the first draft is being written, it'll have this in mind, and it may not even have the flow diagram of how it happens, but it'll have this in mind as we talk about the charge of the committee. Here's the planned flow. So we've already said first vetting is at the committee. And
In between those, Paul, should we have the committee looks at funding and need of the proposal in between those two before we recommend it to the select
well, I
board?
think that's part of the vetting process.
Okay,
So
okay.
See how it affects the plan over 5 years, 10 years.
okay, and
Oh, one thing I would add is, so when we recommend it, we voted on it and voted to recommend it, so it's gone through the voting on our committee.
that's how we make a recommendation is we vote to propose and recommend to the
Right, okay. Yep.
select board.
Good.
And so we would, the last thing would be,
Added to our spreadsheet.
good enough for now. Any other ideas?
Yep, looks good.
Time horizon.
I think this would be when the departments present to us that they present in the fall. The two departments or anyone else is presenting presents before January 1st, so we have a time to figure out financing before we present to the budget committee.
When do you present to the budget committee?
It changes each year. It depends on how soon they need it to go out for the warrant. So some years we present to them in March or April and some years in February. Maybe you can speak to that,
It's
Andy.
typically,
Late winter, early
yeah,
spring.
it's typically February through March
Okay.
when the budget process is in full swing.
So in time horizon, we basically meant annual scheduling of the plan.
Well, I don't know. Jan Peter, what else? Is it time horizon on how far out we're projecting, or is it time horizon of when we take in our information? That's pretty open.
What do we want it to be?
I
We
don't
could
know
say
what
it should-
when we brought it up.
Right, but we could say it's a 20-year plan.
It is. Well, that's in the tool for. that's
Right,
already
that's,
on.
the tool was a 20-year plan, so the time horizon is a 20-year plan. And what we're expecting is department presentations each fall, review all items in the asset schedule. What else relative to time horizon?
You might want a sub-bullet under the 20-year plan. Updated yearly interest rates, inflation.
And we just say all items, all assumptions?
Yeah,
If you get a chance to spend some time on the spreadsheet, Paul has done an awesome job. And it's got a page with assumptions that every year we go over and redo. So every year, basically, we start from scratch,
Okay.
every single year, and we go through the whole thing.
Actually, this is a very good first meeting for me because you're laying it all.
Well, yeah, you're getting to see it, yeah,
this is from the ground up.
right. I mean, this is kind of starting over.
Crash course here.
Anything else on the time horizon? I mean, oh, I know what, do we want something in there for the department, presentations? If it's gonna be replaced in 1 to 5 years, we want 3 bids. If it's more than 5 years, 1 bid or one estimate.
Right, that's what we talked about, that if it's 5 years out, they need 1 bid. If it's like 2 years out, they need to get, 1 year out, they need to get 3 bids. What did we decide? Anyone remember?
It was,
Bids under 5 years. If I remember correctly.
yes. Yeah, cause I just.
Okay.
And what we're looking for them is to do some research on the price, but we're trying to narrow it down so they're not something that's gonna be replaced in 12 years. They're not out hounding vendors to get something that we're not gonna do for 12 years. But at least talk to somebody and get an educated guess, as opposed to throwing darts in your office type of thing.
And that's what we talked about earlier, is like dump trucks might increase 15% in 1 year. If we wait for 3 years, they may have doubled. So this helps us to stay on top of things. If they just go out and, do a vendor, give me a rough estimate of what a brand new one is. And the guy says, "Oh, okay," and gives them a rough estimate. At least we found out with this, it took us totally by surprise.
Now, the downside of that is we are getting. What's the right word? Dealer price as opposed to bid price.
Right.
So our prices are probably a little bit higher than, but
That's on the safe side.
that's on the safe side, but it also once it gets in with 5 years, that's beginning to get narrowed down. So that now you're going out to 3 dealers and talking about it. And if they know you're talking to 3 dealers, hopefully you're not just getting an off the cuff $150,000 type of thing. So that's what we expect. Okay. Calling out future capital expenditures is not already in the plan. This one is kind of new territory that we threw in there.
Investigation work.
Yeah, I mean, what should our charge, what are we thinking in terms of something that we're not now looking at? Let's go back to the example we used earlier. The town decides in the village district, now that we're maybe having a village district, we're gonna put a ball field and playgrounds with equipment and kids for recreation and all that, and we need $50,000 worth of equipment with a 10-year life. That sounds like something that would come here. I mean, so we want to be somehow seeing that ahead of time so that we can say, all right, let's put it in the plan when we've still got time to accumulate some money for appropriation. Otherwise, we got nothing without totally upsetting the plan. Does that make sense? So,
I don't think that should be part of our charge. We discussed that.
I know we've discussed that before and we don't all necessarily agree on it.
No, I don't, because I think if you do that, there are plenty of committees that have that, and then there's the public that can do that as well. And they can come to us or the select board and make proposals. And to make that a part of our charge, that makes it part of our responsibilities. And now, if we overlooked, for example, as a committee, a thing that should be happening to the town, and we don't bring it up, then later on they come, they will actually put the blame on the committee, whereas it is the responsibility of the whole town to come up with new planning. I mean, as a committee, as an individual, I think it is very worthy to go to the town and think, well, we should have this playground, or the town will not be able to live with this or that. That's, we all should have that responsibility, but I don't think it should be a committee responsibility.
Andy, go ahead.
Well, my thought on that is it does no harm for the committee to ask the other committees that they're interviewing, what are you seeing coming down the pike towards us in the next 5, 10, 15 years? Do you foresee any major expenditures possibly coming? And it gives you a chance to say, well, maybe we ought to put something in this plan for that.
But that would come under the reviewing of.
Well,
of incoming stuff that we are.
It would
Well,
be
but,
it would
and
be in
here's the diff-
conjunction
right.
with other committees
When I think of
and
it,
departments.
I don't think of us being on the forefront of getting the playground equipment. I think of us, kind of like what Andy's saying, is we're the only ones thinking about capital projects that have to be put on the schedule and refreshed every once in a while. The recreation committee is thinking about recreation. And they're going to come in one day and say, we get to the select board and say, we have this recreation plan. And we need you to fund $50,000 for next year's purchase. And they're going to go, there's no $50,000 here. You should have presented that to the capital improvement planning committee 10 years ago or 5 years ago when you first started developing this plan. So I think it's the committee, initiating committee's responsibility. Our responsibility is, does the recreation committee understand that if they're going to have a capital need, they need to be coming to us? How often have we been to the recreation committee and let them know that? How often? Zero, right? How often have we been to any committee and talked about, if you're going to have capital needs, then you got to be coming in here. And we say, oh, wait a minute, you've got a village district that's now being developed in town. This committee ought to be asking the public works guy, village district, that something's going to happen there. Things are going to get built. They're talking about grants from Department of Transportation for sidewalks and stuff. Do you have a sidewalk plow or broom in your plan? Well, no, I don't, well, wait a minute, but that could happen within the next 10 years. And somebody needs to be on top of presenting that item to this committee so we get it in.
I know, I don't have a problem.
But we're the only ones that are going to remind anybody to do that.
I don't have a problem with what he or you are saying,
Right.
just to make it for example, I mean, the guy who actually started the ball rolling on looking the future, looking at the new fire station and so forth, was you, actually.
Right.
You didn't do it as a committee, you did it as an individual citizen of the town. And then it came to the committee automatically and it was brought forward.
Well, if you want to know the truth, this committee put it on the voted to put it on the asset schedule before I, the citizen, went out and did what I did.
Was that the sequence?
Yeah. But I would have done it anyway for
Yeah.
personal reasons, because I
Well, I don't care.
Well, it was the
Well, I
right
care
thing to
about it,
do.
but I mean, I can live with it one way or another, but you know what I think.
but are you in agreement with what Andy and I were saying about what the role of this committee would be in foreseeing?
Oh, yes.
All right, so let's put our bullets in that way. In other words, we're not responsible for getting the playground equipment there. We're responsible for making sure that people that want playground equipment there know this is the place to come fund it initially and to get replacement of that equipment. Because if you put $50,000 of the equipment out there and you never ask us to get us on the asset list, when it wears out and fails, we're not going to fund it. Because it has.
And we actually discussed that in a prior item.
Right. So Rodney?
I think what we could put under here is communication with other committees, like ask committees to come visit us. Some sort of communication between us and other committees so that we know what they're doing and what they have in the plans down the line. As far as our charge goes, we're coming up with something we'd like the selectmen to make our charge, but the selectmen can write in whatever they want for our charge. We're just trying to put forth something and hope that they agree with us
Well,
and
The charge, I'm reasonably certain is gonna be quite a bit more generic than
Right.
this whole presentation, but the meaning will be there, and this defines the charge, is what I foresee.
Right, I mean, the charges are usually generic.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be very specific, but in terms of the bullets we generate, I think in this discussion is gonna help us write a charge that encompasses all the things that we think this committee should be looking at. And I agree with Jan Peter that we should not be going out and pricing playground equipment. But I agree with Andy that somehow we got to get that equipment into this committee. And the only way to do that is through communications, which I think Rodney, you mentioned, is communicating with these other committees about if you've got something that you need down the road, and here's what we're defining what a capital expenditure is. If you got a $10,000 or more request for a depreciable item that the town's gonna buy, you need to come see us well in advance.
I agree. with
You're comfortable with that if that's where it is?
because there was a question one year, the charge had us going out, and if Public Works said we need $250,000 for a plow truck, that we were gonna go out and check around and see if that was the best price, and that's where it got a little confusing of, it's not really our
Above and beyond.
job to go out and see if that's the best price.
No, we're not the people to run around looking at specific assets and pricing them, but we're the ones that ask the hard questions about what is it we really need, what we're trying to accomplish, and how are we going to finance it. Okay. Okay. Anything else on that one?
Yeah, I think that, and that's something maybe we could do a better job of, is talking to other committees and making them aware of this point.
Yeah,
Other committees and departments, I think, would be.
okay.
But you do with the departments now.
Yeah, we do. And, we've had good experience and we've had bad experience with that, where things surprised us and,
And you're never gonna hit 100%.
right.
You're never gonna
Yeah,
bet.
but I mean, the good thing is the front end loader that came through the process of being added. This committee vetted it, was able to do a financial analysis to say there's a more than a good return on that piece of equipment. Not in the plan, but we think we should do it. And then, of course, the world went crazy with inflation and everything else right after we did it, but yeah,
But
okay. So
we've come out okay.
so we're at the end of the brainstorming I had planned for tonight. Is there anything I've missed?
Pretty complete.
Is there a volunteer to write the first draft?
If you send me that,
Oh, I'm happy to share, yes.
I would take a stab at it.
Alright, and then some, I mean, what,
That way it would be coming from the select board.
Are you formally on this committee or not?
No.
No.
Okay, yeah, it's a perfect job for you.
Right. No, and I,
Formerly on the budget committee.
I got that. I just.
but I would say, what, the first draft is I would expect that we are going to enthusiastically pick it apart
I would
And-
hope so.
And, right, and so no one whoever writes it should not feel bad about our enthusiasm of doing that. It's just who we are. And, and,
Good with that.
right, and I think that, but now we're ready. We've gone through the brainstorming sessions. We need to have something that gets all of our, somehow winds our thoughts in there in the appropriate language for committee charge that we can then start wordsmithing to get ready to present to the select board as this is what we think. And then out of that, we'll figure out what the name of the committee should be based on who we are at that point. Does that make sense?
I will leave it nameless.
Right.
Anonymous, huh?
Anonymous, yeah.
Rodney?
I'm thinking for the next meeting, maybe we should make sure that the spreadsheet, everyone's able to look at either on their laptop or on a sheet, because once we start getting into department heads, we're gonna be using that spreadsheet. Our next meeting is with the department head. And that spreadsheet will be what we'll be using as a guideline. So do you have a copy of the spreadsheet?
I don't
He
believe
does
I
not.
do. Okay, good.
Teresa does not have,
We'll be using the gold copy from town meeting, correct? We haven't made any changes to it since town meeting.
none official. I mean.
Not the gold copy, but others with how much they appropriated, how much interest and all that.
I think
You're-
you're using with the changes that you've made thus.
Right, here's the problem. I'm still in the process of developing the new plan. There's still information missing from the town. So if I give it to you, you can't look at the whole thing.
So we'll go by the gold copy then.
Well, we can look at the gold copy or look at, with this agenda, I gave you the asset list. Right, every agenda, I send the asset list, which Kyler has right there. So it's at the end of the agenda. It indicates which items are being recommended for refinancing in the next plan, shows the current replacement cost and the current service life and when it's to be. So we have this list.
Right.
You want to see all the annual appropriations and expenditures and all that?
The thing I was thinking is that usually we look at, okay, the new dump truck's gonna cost this. What does it do to, the graphs that you have in the spreadsheet? How does it change those graphs?
I would rather wait until we get further along.
Okay,
Because-
that's fine.
Is if we get through Matt and Jesse, by that time Becky will have gotten me all the information. There's still a document I'm missing that has important information in it. That will reflect on those graphs. And then we can get into, the what if scenario. Hopefully then all the assumptions are in there, all the variables have been added. And then and Jesse and Matt have done their thing and Don Peter on Mallet Hall or whoever you designate. And then we can go to look at the plan, do the what ifs, put our final assumptions in because we have the smoothing to do at that point because we can't smooth till we know all those things.
Right.
And then we can go, after we do our smoothing, we can go look at, all right, we like it, we don't like it. Let's go to the what if page and say, let's change some of these assumptions and see what happens. Something new we added since we were here. And play those type of games until we find out a new set of assumptions that works best for us. Is that okay? I mean, I can bring it in. It's just, it's gonna have holes in it.
I think the gold copy is probably on the town website, isn't it?
The gold copy, the gold copy of that page is on the town. I don't put the spreadsheet on anymore, just that one. I can send everybody the gold copy.
It won't do you any good because you don't have your inflation,
Right, all your,
you've already.
What I was thinking is that for a new person, it would let them see what the spreadsheet looks like.
I mean,
Get
if,
a chance to look it over.
But we'll have it on here anyway during the meetings.
we'll put it up there, but if anybody wants the spreadsheet as it sits now, I happily send them. It's not, you can't have it, you can have it. But I think for a meeting, if we're looking at what the plan is saying, like up until 2 days ago, the capital reserve account was at $1. Because I was waiting for Becky to give me the update
Oh.
out of the
okay.
town. Oh, well, she just gave it to me when I came in I came in Monday to pick up something for another committee and she said, oh, I've got this for you. And, all right, here's the updated capital reserve balance and I plugged that in. So now that's in there. I'm missing one key piece is the tax commitment information. I need to finish that out. And that finishes the charts.
Okay, yeah, fine.
And, but anybody that wants the spreadsheet, you can have it anytime.
As long,
Yeah.
as long as we have it up here while we're working.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
as long as we've got that's what I meant. If it's up there, that's fine.
Right, and if you want, we can put it up there while we're talking to the department heads.
Yeah.
It's
sure.
just that if you say, let's jump over and look at the chart, you may not get a reliable chart because there's something in the background that's missing.
Right, yeah.
That's all I'm saying. And then the next change somebody makes, it's gonna be different. So, all right, so Andy's going to do a first cut, understanding that the committee will be enthusiastic in how they approach the wordsmithing and things that are in there. Thank you, Andy.
You will just email me.
I will email you that.
Spreadsheet program. I don't know. Do you have?
I just look at the one as he updates.
I do write nice thank you notes, so I
I
can probably write a charge.
Is it time, are you looking for a motion to adjourn or is there anything else, Paul?
I don't think I was gonna ask, is there anything else for tonight's meeting? Back to the agenda. Just, if there's nothing for open discussion, then Wednesday, the 29th, Matt Nielsen, our road commissioner, will be here to review public works. And Wednesday, December 27th, Chief Peters will be here to review public safety.
And I'll grab a hold of his earlobe and drag him here.
Yeah, well, he volunteered for that date. That was his choice.
When is, what
Okay.
is the date? What is the date for public safety?
December 27th. Now, I did give him a heads up. That's 2 days after Christmas. The committee may decide that we're not meeting Christmas week and we'd have to reschedule, but he's aware of that. So we'll,
The three of us said we'd do it. Do we want to check to see if new members?
well, we should probably let the new members know that we meet the last Wednesday of each month.
I knew that.
Okay. So that's when we seem to be able to get a room.
No plans for Christmas, so I'll be
Okay.
here.
Nor do I.
Yeah.
So I have no.
To me.
So now I will entertain a motion to adjourn.